Well, some light at the end of the economic tunnel is being predicted tonight. Barbados' economy is projected to grow by almost 2% next year. But Central Bank Governor Dr. Delal Worrell says growth for this year will be less than 1%. Dr. Worrell made the revelations as he released the details of the analysis of Barbados' current economic performance.
The central bank's economic growth forecast is based principally on expectations for the tourism sector and on major investment projects planned by the private sector and by government. The forecast takes into account the strategies for strengthening the competitiveness of the foreign exchange sectors and the potential growth of alternative energy production. Growth is expected to accelerate slowly from less than 1% in 2014 to about 1.6% in 2015 and between 2% and 3% thereafter.
The central bank governor also says that projected private sector investments over the next 3 years will be more than $2 billion.
A conservative estimate of known private sector investments that may be expected to materialize over the next 3 years is approximately $2.2 billion. In addition, public sector investments and guarantees for infrastructure and participation in foreign exchange related projects are likely to be about $740 million over that period. Strategies for the growth of tourism include improving the visitor experience through sports, cultural, and environmental activities.
Prime Minister Fundell Stewart has rejected accusations that the National Housing Corporation has lost its way under the government's watch. He was speaking in Parliament on a resolution for $58.6 million to fund the operations of the Ministry of Housing and Lands. The bulk of the monies, $33 million, is earmarked for the NHC, another $23 million for rental payments, and another $2.1 million to cover expenditure at the Warrens building. Prime Minister Stewart says, contrary to what is being said, the Democratic Labour Party is now trying to redirect the NHC so that it fulfills its mandate of providing housing for the poor.
That does not put me at odds with the member for St. James South, who quite rightly makes the point that the middle class of Barbados has to be captured by the programs of the National Housing Corporation as well. But the honourable member for St. James North must not give the impression. Sorry, St. George North, but St. James North too. But he must not give the impression that he knows nothing about this. 1998, number 16 is the amendment. That is when the National Housing Corporation was delinked from housing only and given the authority to build other kinds of buildings. And that is the explanation for the National Housing Corporation's involvement in the barrack building at Warrens.
Minister of Housing Dennis Kelman, who piloted the resolution, says this type of supplementary is not unusual.
This supplementary is a customary supplementary. It's something that we expect to do on a yearly basis, and the records will show that we normally come every year for this supplementary, like how we have been coming for a supplementary for the University of West Indies nearly every year in the month of February, from the time I came to this Parliament.
Government is spending $80 million a year paying for rent for various buildings across Barbados. This information from Industry Minister Donville Innes, who says $30 million out of that amount is paid for rentals to the private sector. This as he supported the money resolution for the Ministry of Housing and Lands while calling for landlords renting to government to desist from exorbitant fees.
The government of Barbados is currently spending about $80 million per year. 80 million dollars per year in rental accommodation across this island for government offices, for regional entities, for international entities that are here. And of that, I believe about $30 million is being paid to the private sector. The balance, most of it being paid to the National Insurance Fund. And even the $30 million or thereabouts that's going out there to the private sector, you know, that is government's way of, yes, Mr. Chairman, that's government way of ensuring that the private sector too is getting part of the action and is helping to stimulate the economies.
Former Housing Minister and MP for St. George North, Glenn Clark, has called on the Housing Minister to tell Barbadians how the $33 million earmarked for the NHC will be spent and if the corporation will be restructured. He also queried the numbers at the NHC and if any workers will be laid off by government as it cuts numbers in the public service.
I am saying that coming here, taking money from the consolidated fund, and we do not know what the fund today because every year we come and bring money out of the consolidated fund, but nobody knows the extent of the consolidated fund as it is. We need to hear where it is because, I mean, we just come and take money out and give this entity, they spend the money, and we do not have a proper accounting, we do not know what is really happening, and we need to know as a parliament what are they going to do with this $33 million?
Opposition St. James North MP Edmund Hinkson says Housing Minister Dennis Kelman still has several questions to answer regarding the NHC. Included among these, Mr. Hinkson says, is how many applications are now before the corporation and what are his plans with regard to high-rise housing given Barbados' limited land space.
What is his position on housing for people with disabilities when the white paper and the green paper that the last Barbados Labour Party administration spoke to state housing, giving 10% of state houses to persons with disabilities. What is his view on that? What is his position on the hundreds of people all across Barbados whose land has been compulsorily acquired by government over the years and who have not been so compensated?
St. Thomas MP Cynthia Ford wants the NHC to come to the assistance of residents of St. Thomas by providing them with houses and lots. She contends that the Urban and Rural Development Commissions must do more in this regard.
There is not a single house or house spot in St. Thomas that has been accommodating for the members of the parish of St. Thomas that they could put up a little hut. I am a supporter of acquisition of the spots so that houses can be built by the individuals with town planning permission. But the folk in St. Thomas have not received a single house through the government program or a house spot.
Opposition leader Mia Motley says she is ready to put the comments of former Prime Minister and party leader Owen Arthur behind her and move on with what she calls the people's business. And she's asking her party and all Barbadians to do the same. Ms. Motley said it was regrettable that a letter written by Mr. Arthur and circulated internally had now made it into the public domain.
As leader of the opposition, I give Barbadians the assurance that the team I lead will not be distracted, but will remain focused on the dire conditions of our country and the plight of thousands of Barbadian families who within days may have to face their future without the security of a job.
Ms. Motley also defended her proposal to form an eminent persons group, which she said would be a non-partisan response to the challenges currently facing the economy. Expect an expansion of jobs in Barbados when the Sandals chain completes its 2 projects here. That's the word from the chain's regional public relations manager during a familiarization tour with members of the media to Antigua and St. Lucia.
St. Lucia is one of the Sandals' success stories. The Latok, Grand and Halcyon operations employ close to 1,200 people. According to Dominic Fiddy, this is expected to be mirrored in Barbados.
I think it's the most stable resort easily in St. Lucia. You guys would be familiar with the seasonal aspect of the tourism sector, but with Sandals we're about 85% year-round. in terms of our occupancy average versus the national average of about 54% in St. Lucia. So that in itself guarantees Sandals businesses that do business with Sandals, and the employees a consistent income.
The properties in Barbados are now going through a sandalization process. This involves refurbishing and rebranding the Almond Village in St. Peter to operate as beaches and the Casuarina.
Every property that we go to, we try to do something a bit different. We try to introduce our customers to a new product. So whether it is building, sky pools from the 3rd story upwards, like we've done in Grenada, whether it is building Rondeval suites, doing them a lot more spacious, whether it is building new Italian villages or new restaurant concepts, we're going to introduce some new things into Barbados that we've never done before.
PR manager of the local operation, David Hines, says the investment in Barbados will certainly boost employment in the tourism sector.
We currently have over 300 local workers at the property in Barbados. With the expansion, which should take place within the next few years, we're going to have upwards of 500 hopefully qualified local people working at Beaches Sandals Barbados. And then also remember the Beaches property, we're going to need at least another 1,200 or so workers. So that's jobs being created for the Barbados economy as well.
Both officials describe Sandals Barbados as a high-end destination, one that satisfies the desires of those especially in the European market who want a Sandals experience within a Barbadian setting. Michelle Arthur, CBC News.
A worrying development at the drug hotline of the National Committee for the Prevention of Alcoholism and Drug Dependency, or NCPAD. The number of people calling spiked by 25% last year. NCPAD celebrated the 25th Annual Drug Awareness Month with hundreds of students at Ellerslie Secondary School. It was there that President Pastor Victor Roach told CBC about the dramatic jump in calls to the hotline. He says research has yet to be carried out to determine whether the additional callers indicate an increase in drug users or just those coming forward for help. Regardless, Pastor Roach says this development requires a twofold response.
One, helping persons follow up and get information, but also becoming members of support groups.
At the ceremony, featured speaker as well as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, Senator Irene Sandiford Garner, revealed continued progress in the area of breathalyzer testing.
I can say now that the legislation which will make it mandatory for breathalyzer testing to be taking place on our roads is now completed. It's in its draft form. I had sight of it myself. So soon from now, we will have breathalyzer testing in Barbados.
She says government will continue to support the eradication of substance abuse and addiction through its Life Education Center, drug education sessions, and other Caribbean projects which aim to supply Caribbean-wide drug education training and certification. During the session, motivational speaker Hayden Chandler talked about his struggles following cigarette addiction.
Many diseases caused indirectly and directly by smoking, most of them directly by smoking. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, emphysema, hypoxia, obstructive sleep apnea, pleurisy, asthma, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, diabetes, and that's just a few of them.
And students say the ceremony was eye-opening.
I learned that smoking is a very bad thing. I didn't think I wouldn't want to start smoking when I grow up in my life.
Smoking is addictive, and over time it builds up and it could become dangerous.
I would tell my friends that not to do it, that it's very bad, that it can damage your body.
Pastor Roach says NCPAD will continue full steam ahead with its 2014 goals, including the facilitation of more peer counseling. A lucky Barbadian now has over 3 million reasons to smile this new year. And that's after winning the latest Super Lotto jackpot. All that was revealed about the winner is that she's a mother of 2. Vincent Haynes collected the $3,290,000 check this morning on her behalf. The ticket was purchased on November 29th last year. Haynes outlined some of the plans his relative has for the winnings.
She'll be building her dream house for she and her family, and she will also be looking after her kids' education the right way, and she will be traveling regular.
Super Lotto's brand manager for Barbados, Lisa Jackman Haynes, says 2013 was a lucky year for many players from Barbados and encouraged Barbadians to continue playing.
We had 4 Super Lotto winners in 2013 alone, numerous double draw winners, and quite a few Mega 6 winners, all originating from Barbados. So we want to encourage winners and players to continue to play the games of Barbados Lottery, because obviously Barbadians are lucky, and there are lots of prizes and winnings out there for our entire portfolio, online as well as instant scratch games.
Some Grisette's community residents are still asking questions about the sudden death of one of their neighbors this morning. 76-year-old Viola Hines was discovered dead at her home. One resident told us he awoke this morning to find the door ajar and, thinking something was amiss, informed the police. Hines, who is Dominican by birth, lived alone at the time. Former resident of the house, George Farley, told the CBC News Hines was married to his late father and has no children in Barbados. Meanwhile, police investigations continue into the discovery of a man's body this morning in Roebuck Street, the city. The deceased was identified by a family member as 66-year-old Anthony Trotman of no fixed place of abode. His body was discovered on steps leading to the Insurance Corporation of Barbados opposite the Transport Board. It is believed he frequented the area. Lawmen are treating his death as sudden and do not suspect foul play.